I lied. It was hard as shit. Now sit your ass down and listen to me complain. If you wanna. Hey guys, it's Mad Static, and it's been a while. At least for me, because honestly, I've been sitting on the Yakuza and Catwoman videos for a couple of months now, but hey, hope you guys are doing well. I've been doing stuff. You know. Things. Summer is always the busiest time for me. Whether I like it or not, I'm forced to be a healthy and productive adult, and because of that, I haven't been able to work on what's really important to me. I've got to pay bills when truthfully, all I want to do is play Batman. But of course, the Elden Ring DLC also came out, and over the last 2 to 3 months now, I've been putting my dwindling amount of free time into making myself miserable. Shadow of the Erdtree is the most divisive FromSoft content I've seen since Dark Souls 2. In a lot of ways, it has some of the same problems as Dark Souls 2, which are problems that Elden Ring has had since releasing on the date that it did, except now condensed and extremified. Cause this DLC almost feels like a mini remix of the base game. There are a lot of moments that are gonna give you deja vu, except with a little more craziness added in. With that, and FromSoft's track record with DLCs, you'd think we'd be getting the absolute greatest this game has to offer, but in a lot of ways, we're getting its worst, as it feels like they're going just like a little bit overboard, a little too much. They need to be stopped. You know, on the other hand, though, it's pretty freaking good in my opinion. Like, I know the difficulty isn't the good kind, but everything else is, I swear. Hey man, don't do that again. You can't ignore the open world. The Shadow Realm is technically very big, but with how many different aesthetics and factions are in here, it feels much more claustrophobic than usual, and extremely layered too. It's like this abstract house where the attic leads to a tree house and you can only get to the shed through this one specific back door. You'll see the basement and the stairs to it are somewhere that doesn't even make sense until you realize they're connected by a tunnel. And you'll want to put in the work to getting there too because, well, honestly, it's just so pretty, man. So listen. There's a lot to get critical about when it comes to Elden Ring and its open world. It feels like they took a formula that worked and then flattened it with fluff and sprinkles. I was blissfully blinded by excitement during my first playthrough. It's why I haven't replayed this game yet, and I will get on the game about this stuff someday. But that day is not today because, oh my goodness gracious, look at that tree. Hey, I love exploring. Oh. This is new. Oh shit, I actually found something! Elden Ring's art direction was already a lot more vibrant than I'm usually used to seeing today, but the Shadow Realm is kind of ridiculous. Every area has some combo of bleakly muted and aggressively saturated colors refusing to mix together, and it makes for dreamlike environments wherever you are. It's mystical, it's magical, it's masterful, and it's messy. Visual clarity is a particularly potent and promiscuous problem. It causes a lot of technical hiccups. Frame rate drops are pretty common against bigger enemies or areas with a lot going on visually, which is most of every area in the DLC. I'd say it's at its worst with some of these boss fights that have these larger-than-life attacks that hit as hard as they look, at the speed of light, and cause like 10 different explosions that don't let you see anything regardless, and then also on top of that, the frames start acting funny. For beautifully better and willingly worse, this is really just the coding. This is all still good for the world though. The variety in the visuals and the layout are still a net positive. Something I don't think I've appreciated enough in my games is a progressive day and night cycle. I've started really noticing when my open world games don't do that, and I think it irritates me more than it should. But Elden Ring does, and I like that. The time and weather conditions have a decent impact on how you end up exploring. Every place in this DLC is stand out here, but for me, there's the the coastline with the blue flowers has quickly become one of my favorite places in the series. I might be biased because gray and blue are my favorite colors, and something about the drab beaches and stupidly lit flowers, it's like a good version of Shrine of Amana. That being said, this is also the place with one of my least favorite encounters in the DLC. Regardless, I have frolicked in these fields for hours now, and I greatly value it. Jagged Peak is very similar to the Dragon Grounds that I can't remember the name of in Dark Souls 2, though it's less of a traditional level or an area and more of this insane dramatic climb to the top of the mountains with some very obnoxious fights in between. And near Ilium, the last place of the DLC is coincidentally just like the Dragon Temples preceding the Dragon Grounds in Dark Souls 2. A truly breathtaking oasis, bestowed to royalty, resting far atop the clouds that coat the other lands, where you'll engage in head-to-head duels with some of the most busted-ass broken enemies in the entire series, with a coup de grace being a fuck you boss that's borderline impossible. Fun times! There's also the Shadow Keep, probably the main big legacy dungeon you go through, with the front gate being the size of a mini dungeon, a courtyard that's basically New Londo ruins with good platforming, acceptable platform, functioning platforming, and the Specimen Storehouse, eclipsing both of them. Think of it like the research halls in Bloodborne, or Duke's Archives combined with the Oldie's Keep. Now what, this game is literally just bigger Dark Souls 2. It's an intimidating labyrinth to try and map out, and it leads off to so many different places. It would be my favorite area if it wasn't for the Abyssal Woods. This place is incredibly hard to naturally find, and it doesn't have the most to even do within it, but it goes for a unique feeling of horror that your horse is not messing with in the slightest, so you've got to traverse it all on foot. It really just might be me for this one, because I get this creepy, like, indescribable nostalgia from it. I don't know if anyone else feels this, but it's a weird place, and I know a lot of people don't like it. I do, though. You've got new weapon types and equipment that allow for completely unique ways to play the game. I run into some guys who start killing me with kung fu combos that I will definitely be switching to for my second playthrough. There are a number of new NPCs and side stories that are probably deep and meaningful. Can't wait to figure out what was actually happening there. I wasn't really thinking about them while playing, but the Skidoo tree fragments are actually really big parts of the DLC, and they kind of feel misguided in my opinion. Also, listen, I don't really care how it's supposed to be pronounced. I'm calling it Skidoo, and you can't stop me. I just don't think there's a really good reason for them being here. Like, their scaling attributes just feel like failings on the part of balancing. I don't know why I need to be powered up. Just make these niggas do less damage overall. Or let me actually see the attacks, or both. Ideally, that would also work fine. They also don't push exploration at all for me. I was going everywhere on my own volition, and they are not powerful or exciting motivators. It takes more than a magic MacGuffin that giveth you more powerful to make exploring interesting. It takes new stuff and pretty colors. The fragments overall were just kinda there. The Furnace Golem fights were pretty cool though. Bro, go away! Even the mini dungeons have unique level design and gimmicks that keep things interesting. Specifically their looks though, because like the new pothead jails and the blacksmith forges are very cool vibes. At the end of these is where you'll sometimes get mini bosses that tend to be a little more experimental. Half the time you're put into some strange circumstance with enemies that will have some type of new fighting style or a twist up their sleeve. FromSoft likes to throw a few of these in each of their DLCs. Sometimes they're cool, sometimes they're terrible, but here they are so appreciated because the other half of the time are the least fun parts of the DLC. Can I heal? Can I please have a second to heal? Just like 1 second. May I? Thanks. Never mind. There are a lot of reused enemies and bosses around the Shadow Realm, which obviously gotta be buffed to be up to snuff, which I was expecting and fine with in concept. But in practice, it's kind of a sucky feeling, spending hours in my brand new DLC fighting old ass enemies that were already overused in the base game, and are now being powered up in really artificial ways. Fight this player NPC that hits for half your health bar and has unlimited poise. Fight the worst enemy in the game with new mobs. Fight this stupid ass dragon. Fight this stupid ass ghost flame dragon. No, fight this stupid ass ghost flame dragon with mobs. And after this DLC, I can honestly say I hate the overworld dragon fights. I despise them all now. The base game had me tired of them shit, but the ancient dragon right before Bale triggered something in me, man. All because his AoE spanned the entire fucking body and hit for almost half my health. I got stuck fighting this thing for multiple days. It was not fun, and after I beat it, I got stuck for like 2 weeks. The 11 main bosses in Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC are... I mean, they aren't that bad. I see where a lot of people... Wrong wording. I feel the frustration, but I must contest with a portion of the overwhelming negativity, as these are still quite quality bouts, tantalizing and testing in equal measure. These are really well-designed fights, and all very stunning ones too. When you're speaking of spectacle, I really don't think anything can top the bosses here. Grand scale chaos and carnage with no caveats, no conditions, less clarity, no chilling the freak out. It's not even that these bosses are too hard. As you can see, I'm clearly a pro Souls gamer bro, who has had no trouble whatsoever with these fights. Each boss has the problem in a different flavor, but from the super extended combos, a barrage of AoE attacks, unpredictably delayed attacks, paired with other attacks that come out faster than anybody can reasonably react to, the clarity thing I was going on about, and the even stricter margin of error, these bosses are increasing difficulty in ways that are only beatable through trial, error, and memorization. Souls games have always been like that to an extent, but with the series beforehand, it was more so like a battle of reflex. You could usually read, predict, and act accordingly to whatever enemies would do, and it was about having good and fast intuition and judgment to avoid getting 2 or 3 hit killed, so you could get the bosses like 20 to 30 hit killed. Memorization definitely helped immensely, but shit usually never got so crazy that it was required. You could usually defeat bosses through careful timing, swift reactions, the will to succeed, the power of believing in yourself. In Elden Ring, with most of the DLC bosses, and actually a few of the main game's bosses, learning these niggas' movesets inside and out is a must for proper reactions to be possible, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kinda disheartening and not that fun when the criteria for dodging is too specific, and the attacks do too much damage, and the screen is too overloaded with death blast and shit, and the fight takes 2 fucking weeks to beat because I have bills to pay and they are interfering with my gaming. Once you get the hang of them though, they're actually pretty fun. Dancing Lion had me stumped for about a week or so. Like the name suggests, it feels like a dance, except with a cape or like a big ass dress, except it turns out there's a truck behind it. You're trying to find the best way to move around this floaty object, and the tellings are subtle and abnormal, but they are there. In phase 2, it becomes almost an avatar. Sadly though, its earthbending is severely slacking. This is mostly a nice step up, but these new forms are sort of a red flag for later on fights, as the AoEs that come with them with every melee attack are ridiculously hard to get a proper read on. Rilana is probably the most normal main boss here, and that is such a blessing. Her string of combos and magic attacks are satisfying to get the hang of, but the second phase made me panic every single time, even when I beat her. Just a very hard magic dual-wielding sword knight. Fun to learn, a week to beat, and all you need is the correct technique. But she also possesses 1 or 2 moves that are borderline undodgeable or impossible to see coming. Another red flag for later on fights. Still, no, probably my second favorite fight here. Mesmeria. This is a lot of people's favorite fight in the DLC, and I can very easily see why. I can actually see it during the fight. That is so appreciated. It's balanced perfectly while the spectacle is still on par with the others. The voice acting and the cutscene give this guy a huge amount of presence though. Personally, I'm kind of struggling to find things to say about it. I just don't have super strong feelings for this fight other than it being really good. Actually only took me half a week to beat this guy, so yeah, I'm pretty cracked. Commander Gauss is weird. Him and Putrescent Knight, actually, I feel the same about both of them. I think I subconsciously end up underestimating them, because they're riding an animal, right? So I get in the arena, I'm thinking, wow, they can't go toe-to-toe with me without a horse. They must suck. But you know what? It turns out they don't, though. You just don't know when the windups with these guys end, and I constantly miss attacks because they're always moving, but they constantly hit me because they're always moving, and I end up taking that personally. It's just like these two irritate me for reasons that don't feel like their fault particularly. I will say though, if a boss has their horse, I like to be allowed to also have my horse. I just want Torrent to feel included. And while you're technically allowed to have him during the Gauss fight, if you tried facing him with Torrent, then you know, not really. I really love everything about the erdtree avatar. Its instantly imposing figure, the black and yellow swamp lake surrounding it, its boss music that sounds like something straight out of Bloodborne. You'd think this thing was about to kill you 50 times over, but it actually only gets in about 10 kills, because you start hitting it and then you realize you're doing way more damage than you're used to in this DLC. It's been a while since one of these bosses went for the emotional angle, and your expectations for the difficulty kinda help play into that. It's the only boss here with 3 phases to it, but they aren't there to slowly unleash the full power of the skidoo. Instead, it's the avatar desperately pushing itself to stay alive. By the final phase, it's only gotten to about half its health refilled. It's much slower and less active. The music is sad and somber. I still don't know what the hell is happening, but they make it pretty clear that you're an asshole for killing this thing. Mid-tier, I think? What the hell are with these names, man? Anyways, this is another boss with some pretty cool aesthetics. In every sense, she feels like a not horrible version of Rom from Bloodborne. She's the otherworldly mother figure to a bunch of annoying-ass spider creatures, and you fight her in a pocket void dimension, but she's got a more engaging moveset and doesn't just wail around like a baby. She doesn't constantly teleport away and make you fight like 10 mobs. She doesn't look like a decaying potato. This fight is just okay, honestly, but I appreciate it so much more for just being Rom except good. Rom. Mina. Romina, is also a better version of a familiar Souls boss, a few bosses actually. This is definitely the best in the lineage of the giant insectoid monster mermaids, but I still can't say she's too impressive or interesting. She's very capable of killing you and has a lot of deadly AoEs that can build up rot, but if you stick close, she'll just tend to miss. Like a lot. I don't know, man. Maybe it was because I fought her directly after beating Bale, but she just didn't leave too much of an impression. Speaking of who... Fuck Bale. My number one issue with this fight is how he attacks. I really don't think there's a single fight that's harder to learn the timing between attacks for. Because you have this ginormous enemy who's always jumping around and moving, and his head is always elevated, and it makes him ridiculously hard to actually hit, which is why all of his moves admittedly try to leave his head right in front of you. I appreciate that. But Bale's model tends to screw with the lock-on camera, and it can end up sending you to hit in a direction that you didn't ask for, and it's impossible to keep track of his head fast enough without the lock-on, so neither situations with the cameras is ideal. These attacks are huge and widespread and take a while to finish, and you think that will leave appropriate opportunities to punish, and they do, kind of. But considering his size, his next attack starts so fast after that interval, it doesn't leave you time to get to his head, land the hit, and evade. Only 2 of the 3 will ever be possible most of the time, which means you need to wait around for the luckiest of opportunities, with him ending a string of attacks with a move he can't continue a combo with sometimes while you're already nearby his head. It's kind of crazy really, because the missing leg and the scars and his size are misleading. They build up a bit of sympathy or even underestimation, only for him to be the fastest giant enemy I've ever seen in one of these games. On one hand, it's admirable that he can do this even with all of his disfigurement. On the other hand, it's emotional manipulation, so. The hitbox on the straight fire breath is actually not working properly. It is actually a glitch. It could be fixed by the time I put this out, but that still wasn't right. He starts yelling out of nowhere, which is obviously emotionally distressing, but more so it wastes so much time since it spawns lightning strikes that chase after you. And of course there's a second phase, because of course there is, where he reveals he had wings the whole time to move even more with, firepool follow-ups to all of his combo attacks, multiple explosion attacks, and then this flying explosion death laser with such a minuscule dodge window that I really don't think I would have had the patience to learn it without watching someone else do it. Of course, I timed this shit too. The gap between the clip of Bale dropping into the arena for the first time to my excitementless victory was 20 days exactly. Not 21 because that would have been too sad. It wasn't about winning the fight with him. There was no joy from winning, no relief. There was only frustration that I let him get to me the way he did. I didn't need that one NPC cursing him out during the fight. I was already doing that. I became a version of myself I didn't like. I called this nigga words I haven't said since middle school. I fucking hate Bale. For about 2 weeks. Now that I think about it, he's probably my favorite fight in the entire game. I'm still mad at him though. We're just not talking right now. Radon! Wait, actually no, Midra. My bad. It's because he's one of the most hidden fights and came in my playthrough so late, so I keep forgetting about this fight even though he's pretty good. Just understand it if that makes sense. He's only got a great sword and some crazy frenzy attacks, but his floaty movements and the effects of the frenzy make him pretty hard to get a hang of. I like the duel though. Good fight, good fight. Radon! Coincidentally, also took me 20 days, but with Bale, I was in the midst of a busy-ass work month and my summer classes and family stuff, so I couldn't be completely locked in as often as I'd like to be. I imagine that, along with not expecting to take that long on the fight, made me angrier at Bale, well, more so than that he deserved. He just happened to be in the way, or I ran into him and turned him into an outlet for my frustrations, and he didn't deserve that. He deserved better, and I will apologize to him next time I face him. He's a remarkable boss fight, honestly, and that is not the way I want to engage with any challenge I face. Radon! I don't have that excuse for Radon. This was 20 days of being focused, still dying for hours, and then trying again the next day. Granted though, I was expecting some bullshit, so I was much more okay with dying here. I don't really have a problem with the first phase. I actually think it's pretty amazing beyond this one cross/ combo thing he does. I've heard a lot of people complain about this move being borderline undodgeable, and I must join in here. The range is vast. He swings almost instantly, and if you dodge the first slash, there's no surefire way to dodge the second one. When he starts this move, blocking or Radon's lock-on getting confused are the only means of not taking damage, and that's not cool. Then, of course, there's the second phase overall, which is a visually incomprehensible mess. Sometimes. Every attack will be followed by a shower of holy beams, and it took so long to even understand what I was looking at, let alone how to get around it. Though, being able to make out what's happening only helps so much when it comes to actually dodging it. The after image attacks are specifically insane because it's almost every big problem of these fights wrapped into one attack. One attack that comes out 3 or 4 times, and a light show that will take countless retries to decipher, and most of your health when you're hit by it. Once you do, you will realize the pleasant surprise of it being undodgeable, and don't forget about the laser shower right after. With a shield, it's an unreasonable struggle to keep calm, manage your stamina, and stay on your toes without any sort of downtime. Without the shield, I genuinely don't understand how beating it is possible. Hey, but after all that though, it's pretty fun, just like the DLC in general. Come on guys, I know it's a little bit bullshit. A lot of bullshit actually. The open world is probably going to struggle to catch my interest the second time around, and I think I'm racist towards dragons now. But I can't let those few negatives overshadow the massive amounts of positives here. The DLC was able to recreate that original wanderlust I first had stepping into Limgrave. Whether I ever feel it again, for that feeling alone, I think incredibly highly of Shadow of the Erdtree. Looking past the spite, it comes packed with some of the best sights, best dungeons, and best fights, and I can't wait to run through them again, because if I did it once, I get to fucking cheat from now on.